What if the wolves of Yellowstone held the secret to your own healing? In this episode, generational intuitive healer Alena shares how nature, animals, and our own soul wisdom are deeply intertwined, and how listening to their silent voices around us can reveal actually what our body, mind, and spirit need to heal and thrive. Hi, and welcome to the You World Order Showcase podcast, where we feature life, health, and transformational coaches stepping up to be the change they seek in the world. I'm your host, Jill Hart, the Coach's Alchemist, on a mission to help coaches and spiritual entrepreneurs amplify their voice, monetize their mission, and get visible, leveraging podcasts and Substack. Today, we are chatting with Alena Seeley Foster. Allana is a generational and intuitive healer who helps people, animals, and nature reconnect with their innate wisdom to identify imbalances, heal pain, and gain soul level clarity. Inspired by the wolves of Yellowstone, she teaches us how animals act as oracles and guides, reminding us we are all connected and we're never truly alone. Welcome to the show, Allana. It's great to have you with me, and I can't wait to talk about these wolves.
Thank you, Jill. It's really good to be here. I'm excited for this conversation.
Okay, so let me ask you the big question to kick us off. And that is, what's the most significant thing, in your opinion, as individuals we can do to make an impact on how the world is going?
Well, because because I have a love for animals and nature. I believe that the most important thing that we can do is to understand that we are not disconnected from animals and nature, that we all are quantumly connected, and we also share a collective consciousness, and everything that we do as humans affect the whole collective of the planet. Each individual person has the ability to start with yourself, heal yourself, address the hard stuff so that we can vibrate out and affect others. That's the most powerful thing that you can do, is to start with you so that you can, and I say affect because your vibrational being in wellness is going to help others and help the planet. And animals will naturally, I was going to say flock to you, pay attention to you when you're in a calm, assertive space.
And they do come to us. We
Yes,
just have
they
to
do.
pay attention.
That's right.
I've had lots of experiences with them interacting with me on different levels. And we were talking before about wolves, and before we started recording, and I told you I was going to tell you the story of a wolf that I actually saw on a walk that I was on. And it just hit me that it happened at a time of really large transformation in my life. And it was a lone wolf. I was walking my dogs. I had about 5 or 6 or 7 dogs at this point in my life, and I used to walk them along this back path. And there was a big field, and then there was the mountains behind us, and they were free, so they saw the animal up on the in the pasture, like up from where we were, and they took off running towards it, and it stood up on its hind legs, and that's how I knew it was a wolf, because dogs don't stand up like that to view what's going on. But it was all by itself. It was just, they turned around and came back when they realized what it was.
Yeah, that's an amazing encounter. And, I like the fact that you said the dogs knew, because dogs do know. I mean, they are of, descendants of the wolves. But they also know, they recognize wild. I have coyotes around here where I live, and we have a lot of coyotes. But you see them certain times, and they come out during the day too, but they really come out at night because they've learned to avoid humans as much as possible. But there is a delicacy of food here in our pets. And so I had a dog a few years ago who was a coyote came over the wall, and she was older at the time, and I had it happen a couple times, but she knew. She froze. I happened to see the encounter. I was there, and she knew if she moved one, because they were almost like a foot apart, nose to nose, she was frozen, and it was frozen in the moment too. but she knew 100% that thing is not supposed to be here and will harm me. So luckily that encounter, nothing happened with that encounter, but there was a second one where it came over 5 a.m. when I was taking her out to, use the restroom, and it snagged her. It zeroed in on her. It knew exactly where she was over the other side of the brick wall. And it came down like a bullet, focused on her, snagged her, rolled her because it didn't expect me. It may have known I was there by smell, but basically it did not expect me being a big banshee, coming after, going towards it. So it just grabbed her, snagged her, went right back over the wall. But that changed a lot for us because I realized that we weren't, I knew, they were here, but to have it that close was really a life changer for us and how we interacted with, our backyard. So
animals are getting more, I want to use the word brazen over the last maybe 30 or 40 years. I remember I lived in California a long time, and my dad lives in Arizona, and he's lived down there for almost 30 years now in a gated community. But the coyotes walk down the middle of the street during the day.
yeah.
They're coyotes. They look like they own the place.
Oh yeah.
And there's not really anything you can do about it because they live near golf courses, so water and rabbits and all the food. And yes, you can take them back out, but they're just going to come back and they're going to bring their buddies because they know where it's at.
Well, yeah, and just like wolves, they're territorial. Just like our dogs, they're territorial. And once you remove a wolf, you're also affecting their entire family. Same thing with a wolf. You shoot a wolf, or the wolf dies, or whatever, and it disrupts the whole pack. So that's that, and think about it. This is where wolves, and why I am fascinated with wolves as well, is that there's a connection that we have with wolves and dogs that are unlike any other species. Our DNA relatives are in the ape line, right? We share some DNA with them, but they do not have the same social behavior that we have and that wolves have. Wolves raise families. They have aunties and uncles. They all have jobs. We have leadership. We seek leadership in our families. So wolves, companionship, cooperation, communication with each other, organization, daily routine, and safety, as well as we seek guidance from our elders. And wolves do all those same exact things. So coyotes do it, dogs do it, and that's why dogs live with us, because we have cats too. And I don't know if you've ever had a cat. We have a first time.
I have 3 of them.
Okay. So I've never had a cat live in my house before until the last 2 years after my dog that had the coyote incident passed away. She was 16 and a half, and I was trying not to have a dog, which is so crazy because I've had dogs my whole life. I'm like, I need a break. What would my life be like without a dog? Well, I now have a 11-month-old puppy because I couldn't handle it, But the cats are a little different, but they're still, species within our homes. And, but dogs are definitely pack animals, and so are we. That's what we have in common. And also, what's very fascinating to me is there are many indigenous stories of wolves and humans and how we came in together as one when of creation stories that the wolves and humans existed together, and we raised our families the same, and that the wolves taught us how to be families, and we made a pact with them. You go do your thing, we'll go do our thing. And then unfortunately humans broke the pact, the pact. So, so now we're in conflict with them. And part of the other piece is that whatever happens to the wolves happens to us. Our fates are interconnected. So, without getting too political, because there's a lot of really gnarly political stuff that always goes on about the wolves. and especially when they were reintroduced to Yellowstone. I lived in Salt Lake City at the time when they were reintroduced. I always loved wolves. I've always had dogs, but I was getting newspaper stories, when we had well, we probably still have newspapers, but I had a friend that would clip out articles and give them to me. And I didn't ask her. She just says, I think you love wolves and I'm going to give these to you. And I kept them for years. And so, we have a lot of hate towards wolves, and there's a lot of love and fascination with wolves. There's a lot of people that are fighting to protect the rights of the wolves, and a lot of people that just don't want them here at all. I'm not sure if you're aware that California now has wolves. We didn't have them for a long, long time. There's at least, I think, 50 to 70 all along the state. They just don't go much south of, what is it? Like the end of the Sierra Nevadas. So like around Mammoth Bishop area, I think we've got some in there. And, they're healthy. They're raising families. And of course, we've got the advocates that's like, yay, wolves again, yay. And the other ones that are just like, we got to get them out of here, got to wipe them out. So if you think about that, we have a lot of stuff going on with humans right now, too, right? We've the conflict of our lives and what's important, and, food and food scarcity. So I find that pretty interesting, that we're in this space right now with so much conflict, again, with the wolves.
Interesting when you talk about food scarcity. Part of that is driven by the fact that people aren't taught how to feed themselves.
That's right.
Most basic animal instinct is to be able to find nutrition. But because of the way we've evolved along the way, we just don't teach our children how to grow food, how to find food that exists all around us.
Right.
Or how to hunt, if that's your thing, or how to fish. And people think, oh, if the end of the world comes, I'll just start a garden. Well, I'm here to tell you, honey, it takes a little bit more than I'll just plant a few seeds and they'll grow and nourish our family. It just doesn't work like that, especially with the way the soil is everywhere. And, things like hunting and fishing, those are skills that you acquire over years of practice, where you would go hungry if you were depending on it. And I think the animals are having the same experience because of the way people have decided to live in communities. They've realized that, your dog is a perfect example. Yeah. Hey, we can go to grocery stores.
Right.
Our homes are like grocery stores for the wildlife. They come in and take their pick of whatever they want. And that's where the conflict comes in with a lot of the farmers and the cattle ranchers, which are primarily the ones that are like screaming about the wolves coming, because, baby calves. They're easy to pick off. Right. And again, it's the way we've evolved as humans is really dictating how animals are also having to respond to how they're living in the world. So it's a really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. So, if you live in a place like, where it's a little more, rural, you're going to have maybe not so many animals coming into your neighborhood, to come and get your pet, but
we've had mountain lions come into neighborhoods.
That's right.
I live in Preston, Idaho, and there was a mountain lion print in a field just down the street from me, and I knew somebody that actually chased a mountain lion out of town, just around the corner from me. So
so it's interesting because I lived rurally in the Salt Lake area. We had a house that pretty much we were able to build the house, and then behind us was like pretty much nothing. And so the first thing I noticed was coyote coyotes are everywhere, but coyote and mountain lion tracks. And because we knew, that we were in an area that was, more accessible to those animals, that we made sure our dogs were always secure. They were with us. They were in a pen. They never had free range in the yard without us there. And so then now being back here in Southern California, one of the interesting things is we have so many people that are so anti-coyote that they don't really understand that when people will say, well, keep your animals indoors. Well, they're fighting against that. They want to eradicate the coyote. You're never going to eradicate the coyote, first of all. It's not going to happen. And learn then to coexist. And that seems so easy. It's really not that easy. But what it does is it takes we want to be able to believe that we should just be able to go in our backyards, have the little dogs, run around, do whatever, or the cats can be out. But in reality, what we're doing is we're not taking in consideration that we live around wild animals. And the more dense of a population, I think people believe that wild animals shouldn't be living there. And so, I mean, seriously, that's how it is around, that, they shouldn't be here. We've got to do something about it. Let's have a meeting, let's call the whatever departments and have them, pick them up and relocate it.
Shoot them.
Shoot them. And so, but these are also some of the same people that, and here's the thing, people love squirrels. Okay. They love their backyard squirrels. They love feeding squirrels at the park. They love feeding the ducks, and the squirrels and the ducks would not be there if there wasn't already food. Just like you were saying, if there wasn't food, they wouldn't be there. So when you feed these animals, you're disrupting their behavior to be a wild animal. I know a lot of people get joy of feeding the squirrels, and they get joy by bird feeders and bringing the birds into their yard. But I don't have any of that in my backyard, and I still get the birds and I still get the squirrels. So they're still going to come, but I don't feed them because I don't want to change their behavior. I get, I get kind of cranky when I go to the public parks around here, and there's all the signs everywhere, and it says, do not feed the wildlife. It's actually illegal to feed the wildlife. And then here comes somebody with their bread,
Which is and really bad for ducks.
It's really bad for ducks. And so, and there's even signs that say that do not feed, especially bread, because it causes angel wings. The duck can't fly, can't, fend for itself, and then basically it ends up dead. And so, but, people aren't, so there's that thing of the superiority of humans and how humans, I think this is the one thing that's really just the tough thing about humans, is that we have a belief that we are superior to animals. And without us, they won't survive. And it's so not true. It's the complete opposite. So, right. And so, and then nature knows what nature is doing. And so when we interfere, it really changes so much.
And we seem to want to interfere everywhere.
Everywhere. That's right. That's right.
That's me crazy.
And we don't know how to stop. That's the hard part.
Because it's all money driven at this point.
Yeah.
It's like there's money in it. So let's, we'll do whatever we want to do. And it's just like,
I know it's hard and it's complicated because it gets to be very frustrating and honestly heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking,
I would just go to Alaska and live out in the middle of nowhere.
Well,
I will have to go hunt my own food.
And that's another thing I wanted to touch on for me personally is I am not opposed to hunters or fish, people that are ethical hunters, ethical, people that are fishing, because it is a skill. And when I lived in Utah, having been raised here in Southern California, it was very foreign, for me to see all the people leaving for the weekend to go, they got their tags for their jeep, they're gone.
School on the first day of hunting season.
It's like holiday, and it's like widow's weekend, the women are left behind, which isn't true all the way around. Women are hunters as well.
Yeah.
But there's a difference between ethical hunters and non-ethical hunters. And I experienced those non-ethical hunters as well, so I do appreciate that and I respect it. But, people that kill wolves, you don't eat a wolf.
No, there's not really any reason to kill a wolf.
You're doing it for trophy and because I don't like wolves. I don't know any other reason. There would be maybe thinking, we're doing it a favor, something with the elk. There's all kinds of stuff, again, you can look this stuff up.
But it's balance.
Well, if we left it alone, it would balance itself out.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. So we don't need to be involved in this equation if we would just stop.
Now, here's another thing to that, though. Okay, so in the what 1997, the wolves came into. They brought the no, it was 1995. The gray wolves were reintroduced into Yellowstone because the wolves were eradicated, from the park and basically almost North America. And they were absent for like 70 years.
Yep.
So they brought them back, and the park was suffering. There were things happening in the park because not all. So when the wolves were taken out, so were the mountain lions and the bears, and
Yep.
and they all coexist together. It's an ecosystem of balance, and so you've got predators and you've got prey.
Elk and the deer
That's
and
right.
the rabbits and the
Right.
squirrels and the everything else. When you remove one thing, then another
right.
thing is going to proliferate and it's going to have problems because
That's right.
then some of these animals are supported by the grass and the ground or the flowers or whatever the the flora and fauna is, and when that starts getting out of balance, then
Yeah.
trees start dying, and then there's big fires, and I mean all of this stuff is interconnected, and we think, oh, no big deal, we'll just rip out
Yeah.
the things that are going to hurt us.
That's
But
right.
we don't belong there in the first place.
No.
Just
Yeah. So
get over it.
so in California,
Mhm.
we did not reintroduce the wolves to California. The wolves found their way here because wolves travel and they are territorial. So they find their territory. So they came in, I believe, through Oregon and then came down. And so right now there's wolves in a lot of the states. So I appreciate that, that they have, the reintroduction to Yellowstone afforded the gray wolves to be able to come back to North America. So the other thing that's happening right now too currently is the reintroduction of gray wolves to Canada. I'm sorry, Colorado. They're Canadian wolves that have been brought down. So the unfortunate part about that is that these wolves were taken from one ecosystem and one land to another land, and they're trying to find their way back. So what's happening is they're starting to move from where they were reintroduced, trying to find their way back up north, and so they're dying. They're being shot. They're in a confusion state right now, which maybe the Yellowstone wolves did too, but the Yellowstone wolves had all those acres of the park. And they don't see a line. They don't know the boundaries, right? We know this. They don't see it. So as soon as they cross because humans know the boundaries, as soon as they cross that line, they're free game, basically. They shoot them. They do whatever.
That's why it was so interesting to me to see the wolf. I live, Preston, Idaho is really close to the Utah border down at the it's by Logan.
Right.
And so I saw the wolf really near to Preston. It was in Dayton, but it's just like 10 miles away. So, and I talked to the university extension office about it because I know what I saw. And they're like, yeah, that's really interesting. They are starting to migrate down into this area too, which is personally, I think it's really cool.
Yeah.
But, there's others that don't.
Well, I think the thing that, also affects this and the ones that don't is because we've also been taught about the big bad wolf. And we've been taught that, wolves are to be feared. And, many, many years ago, before we were here, before the Europeans were here, I should say, that the wolves dominated this continent and are all over the world. There's wolves all over the world. And, by our fearing them because of them coming in and, hunting our cattle and, sheep and, the idea that they go after humans, just like the coyotes here. Like I just read something this morning about a woman who was out running with her dog last night and in an area where there are known to be coyotes. And she had her dog. She let her, well, anyway, now I lost my train of thought because I went into that story. But the idea that, oh my gosh, I just totally lost my train of thought with that.
I hate it when that happens. You were talking about animals and reintroducing them to California, and that they.
Oh, the big bad wolf.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And so the idea that they're attacking humans, right? So we've had a few things happen here in this area where there's been children that have been attacked by a coyote. Now I can see that. I can see why that happens because they're small, and the coyote doesn't know. I mean, it's a small animal, right? It's small. They can take it. And as far as humans, if you do some research, there's not a lot of wolves that have actually attacked and killed humans. It's not standard operation for them. They have a fear of us. Yeah, and they have a natural fear of us, which most animals actually do. You would get attacked by and killed by a mountain lion before you would a wolf. And the coyotes, that's the other misconception. That's where I was going with that story was, the idea of I don't want to be attacked, so I let my dog off the leash. Big dog, this is what this story was relayed to. And, so that the coyotes would go away from her and not attack her, just attack her dog, that the dog stood a better chance of fighting off the coyotes. So, my thoughts go to, well, she was in danger because she had her dog. Maybe by chance, if she was walking by herself and all the coyotes there, they may have, that may have been their behavior, but it's not really their behavior. So
why
I think,
are you out there walking by yourself anyway?
well, that's what we were, talking about. Yeah.
Like, hello.
Yeah. Well, and that's what, people chime in. They're like, well, you shouldn't be walking, I'm glad you're okay and your dog's okay, but you shouldn't really be doing that. But theirs is the entitlement. And I'm not saying this person, I don't know this person, but we're talking about the story, and that if we lived in, country, like let's say and you got mountain lion out there, you're probably not going to be walking your little dog at 10 o'clock at night in the dark, or at dusk or dawn, because that's when they generally are out. And a lot of people don't see mountain lions because they're cats. They're hiding. They're stalking. Not like a wolf, or a coyote. They're out. They're not hiding from us. They're doing their thing, and there they are. So, we're in for a lot of, different. Well, I'm hoping that we can learn that it's okay to have these animals living amongst us. I know that it gets a little scary when they start to encroach. That's where it starts to freak people out, is when they start to encroach into our, everyday lives. It makes us uncomfortable. Then we have to lock up our pets and we can't go out after dark, But, I just don't, I feel like if we're going to have more respect for animals, then we just need to know that we live amongst them. They don't live amongst us, although it's a co thing, but they're everywhere. We just have to learn that if I've got more coyotes in this area, then I'm not going to take my dog out for a walk at 10 o'clock at night and have him on a big long leash so he's 8 feet ahead of me, coming around a corner, which I see all the time here. So it's just being a little smarter and having respect for where you live and the animals around you. And that's a hard one. I mean, I have to close my eyes sometimes, and keep my mouth shut, about certain behaviors, because to be honest, I'm not going to get an argument with somebody about something. I'll have a conversation and then do, podcasts and talk about it and try to have a platform about it. But if somebody wants to feed the squirrels, who am I to say I can't be the forest ranger? I might mention something, but I'm not going to get an argument with somebody about it, or yell at somebody that they're doing that. So,
I find it interesting too that people will be afraid of wolves. And I'm sure this has to do with stories too, but they look at bears as though there's this cuddly thing. You're far more likely to get injured by a bear than you are ever get injured by a wolf.
Yes. Absolutely. And if let's say you're a hiker, you're a backpacker, or you're going to be camping in an area where there's bears, or you live in an area where there's bears, there's precautions that you take because they're there. It's what we've been talking about all along. There's precautions that you take because this animal is here. And if you don't take the precautions, then you're going to pay a hefty price.
It might be your life.
It might be your life, right? Or sacrificing your car or your, your house or whatever it is. So
But they're
then go ahead. You go.
all the animals are here for a purpose. They serve a purpose in the cycle of the whole ecology of this realm that we live in.
That's
When
right.
you remove something, then something else is going to have an effect on something else. And it's probably not going to be the effect that we immediately see because everything is chain linked together. And when you pull one of the chains out, then all the way down the line, things are impacted.
That's right. Well, it's like, even with trees, and they just tore down a building here that had been here for, many, many years. And along with the building and the property, they tore down huge old eucalyptus trees.
God,
And
so
so
sad.
you imagine the ecosystem within those trees, and now they're gone. So
The
those,
tree is bigger below than it is
yes,
above,
that's right. That
like
we were just
twice
talking
as
about
big.
that yesterday. Yeah, I have some plants in pots that need to be replanted. So I have there's a street circle here across from my house that has some huge trees, and it's so cool because there's a whole system of animals, squirrels and birds that live in those trees. We have a lot of crows around here, and I was walking the other day, walking my dog, and lately, I'll go through periods of time where I don't see any feathers, and it could be seasonal, for the birds. But then all of a sudden, there's right in my path there will be feathers. So lately, I've been lots of crows and also little gifts, trinkets, and so I've been collecting the feathers because there's a spiritual connection that I feel with these animals, and I feel like it's a gift. So I hadn't seen owls around in a while, and for a while we were seeing them all the time. And so I had been thinking about them. So I'm walking, and I noticed that there's something standing straight up in a yard across the street. So I'm looking at it going, what is that? So when I got closer, it was this beautiful feather, beautiful. And it was basically it was an owl feather. At first I thought it was a hawk feather, but it was one of the most beautiful feathers that I've seen in a long time that it's been shown up. But I love it.
Mhm.
It was just standing straight up. It was like, hello, here I am. So I went and picked it up and came home, identified it, and so this was maybe last week. So last night or night before, I'm walking my dog again, and it was getting to be dusk, and I'm hearing all the birds. They're singing to the sun going down, right? And I would start thinking, it's like, I haven't really seen an owl in a while. I used to see them we have some lines in the back, and they'd be up there, and I have a channel that starts behind my house and goes all the way out to the ocean. And so we get a lot of wildlife here. But I was like, wow, I wonder where, I just haven't seen owls in a while. And so I went for my little walk. And as I go to my house and I'm crossing the street, an owl flew right over us, heading in the same direction that I was walking. And I was just in awe. And I love that. So that to me feels part of that collective consciousness and spirituality that we share with all sentient beings. You can call it whatever you want. If you're a non-believer in that, you would call it, oh, it's coincidence, whatever. But I knew it was
I've
more
had
than that.
too many experiences. The last one that I had was we had some crows that there were three of them. One of them was injured, and I'm pretty sure it was the female. She was up on our porch, and I was having a conversation with her, and she moved to the backyard last summer, and then she healed, and they flew away for the winter. But this spring, the three of them came back, and they were sitting in the tree talking to me. They've gone somewhere else, but I know that they came back just to say, hey, she's well and she's up in the tree. I've had an experience with a hawk and bald eagles, and I just like so many animals that are just
Yeah.
like they show up at times in our lives when we need a message from them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
have to like listen for the message.
Yeah, you listen, you pay attention, you observe, be an observer. It's all around us all the time.
Mhm.
So, they also, okay, so, we're talking about physical animals. There's also, let's say you have a dream. Like last night, I had a bear in my dream. There was a bear in my dream. And so I haven't dreamt of bear in a long time. So, bears in introspection and, the north, going in the cave, birthing, right? All those things that bear it represents or is, so then you take that symbolism. It's more than symbolism. It's, who the bear is, right? What is bear? And then because it became in a dream, I have to look at the symbols in the dream and how it appeared to me. But if you take the time to pay attention to those things and then apply it to your life, what's happening right now that I can, get the lessons from bear. What is bear trying to tell me? And then let's say, and as I'm sitting here right now, right in front of me, I've got Smokey the bear, little stuffed Smokey the bear, and I also have a card that has a bear on it. And I've always loved bears. Bears mean a lot to me as well as wolves and buffalo. Those are my animals. And so let's say that I have the dream of the bear, and then I'm out in the day and I see a sticker on the back of a car that's a bear, or there would be a license plate that says bear, or whatever. And all of a sudden you've got all this bear stuff going on. Well, your brain had, sees it. Maybe it's always been there. Maybe that, it's always been there. But today, for some reason, bear is showing up and you're paying attention. That's basically what we're talking about is open up your eyes to the possibility that animals are all around us, and their medicine, their gifts are here to help us. Animals were here before us. We're basically the last creation on the planet in the creation stories. We were made last. And so the animals want us to succeed. They want us to be okay, but we're like little children. We haven't really grown up in our sentience on the planet. That's why we're destroyers, because we haven't learned to not be destroyers. So, and when I say we, I'm talking about, again, the collective of humans, right? So individually, people learn lessons. And of course, our souls are on different levels. If you believe that, some people say, oh, she's an old soul or she's a young soul, So we're all here to learn lessons on the planet, our soul experience in a human body. And I truly believe that. But the animals, it's like when I say I dreamt of bear, bear energy, bear as a, medicine of bear. What does bear teach? Not the bear, a bear, but bear. Mm-hmm. So it's that way with, all animals. Wolves. What do wolves teach us?
Well, they're spirit animals.
Yes, that's right. So whether they're, a live encounter or a dream or some other symbolism that these animals come to you, you pay attention. And I would say most people have that awareness, you could have a bird fly right in front of your face, of course you're going to pay attention to that bird, or almost, however that works. But if you want to take it farther and, what is this? Because I think there's times too where maybe you might just see a bird and you go, oh, it's so beautiful, whatever. But then something might happen that feels unusual, right? That it's a little bit more than just the sighting of the animal. And it takes your breath away or it causes you to pause or whatever it is. I think that's kind of when we're talking about spirit animals or lessons of animals, take the time to, just investigate what that might mean for you and how they can help you.
So, Allana, do you help people with interpreting dreams and looking at what animals are trying to communicate to them? Is that
Yes, I
what you do as a
do.
coaching practice?
Yes, I do. As well as, so I'm a Reiki master teacher, also an animal communicator, so intuitive animal communication. Also, different trees, connecting with ourselves, with nature, and the healing qualities that, we have within ourselves, the qualities that are innate, senses, that we are part of nature. We are all interconnected, and helping people to reconnect and remember their connection. That brings me great joy. Helping people heal their imbalances, their traumas. Bring yourself back to balance, and understanding that even if you live where I live, which we think there shouldn't be, we're just basically
Animals.
sometimes not connected to nature, that it's all around us no matter what. No matter where we live, there's birds, migratory birds, there's bugs. I went into my workspace the other night, and it was dark, and I turned on the lights, and there was a very large spider on my wall, and I was like, ooh, dude, like and then it crawled right behind a picture that I have, and I'm like, okay,
Can do
just
that.
don't come out when I have a client here, just go ahead and hide. And that's exactly what happened. So I'm not going to go hunt her down. I said dude, but her. I'm not going to hunt her down. Spiders are actually very spiritual animals, and we're all animals are equally, have equal medicine, right? Equal, just like every one of us, we're all equal. There's not one that's greater than another, so a little roly-poly bug, its power is just as powerful as that wolf or that bear, in what they have to offer the planet.
Exactly. So do you help people one-on-one, or is it kind of in groups? Is it, how does your coaching actually work?
Right now I do one-on-one. I have taught classes in the past, and I have conducted fire ceremonies and invited people into that. But I'm not doing that so much right now. I know we're after COVID, but COVID kind of shut down things like that and kind of changed a lot of things. But I definitely do one-on-one, and can work with anybody all over the world.
Beauty of Zoom.
Yeah, healing can happen distance, just like prayer. It's very powerful. So whether we are on, doing a distance healing session or in person, they're both very powerful. So yeah, I definitely work with people on live stream. And so you can go to my website, Intuitive Heart Studio. I have information there in my blog about things that we talked about today. If you want to learn more about wolves, I've got a whole resource blog that will give you some information to be able to learn a little bit more about wolves. And I have a schedule button, so you can click on that and you can look at everything that I offer, and book an appointment there. So that's the best way to work with me.
Perfect. Thank you so much for joining us today, Alena.
Thank you, Jill. It's been a pleasure.
To learn more about Allana and to find the mini intuitive energy healing reading, wolf and wildlife resources, please visit intuitiveheartstudio.com, and we'll be sure to put those links in the show notes below. Thank you for tuning in with us today. If you have a podcast or you're interested in starting one, be sure to reach out to us at support@heartlifecoach.com. We love to help people like spiritual entrepreneurs and coaches amplify their voice and monetize their mission, and offer a variety of ways to do this, leveraging Substack. Join us for our next episode as we share what others are doing to raise the global frequency. And remember, change begins with you. You have all the power to change the world. Start today and get visible.